How old is our GPS hardware and infrastructure, architecture, design of our GPS systems?
Senator, we have a mixed Services Committee hearing. Appointed Exchange highlighted just how quickly space is becoming the next major arena of strategic competition. Senator Tim Sheehy pressed U.S. Space Command Commander Stephen N. Whiting on a critical issue: China's growing efforts to undermine U.S. space defense capabilities. What emerged from that discussion is a stark reminder that modern warfare is no longer confined to land, sea, or air. It's now firmly rooted in orbit. General Whiting outlined concerns about China's expanding toolkit, including anti-satellite weapons, cyber capabilities, and electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt or disable U.S. satellites. These aren't hypothetical threats. They represent active investments aimed at eroding one of America's most decisive military advantages. Make sure you listen till the end, otherwise, you might miss it when it cuts off.
General, what do you assess as our resilience against a Chinese first strike against our orbital infrastructure?
Senator, China has significantly increased the number of threats they can employ, from both ground-based systems like direct-sent ASAT weapons as well as on-orbit, co-orbital ASAT capabilities. We continue to have the world's best space architecture, and we continue to develop and deploy capabilities that improve our resilience. But we must focus on those continued investments, and the programs that the Congress has funded must continue to deliver so that we can maintain our resilience relative to those growing threats.
How old is our GPS hardware and infrastructure, architecture, design of our GPS systems?
Senator, we have a mix of satellites on orbit today that provide that operational constellation. Some of them are probably 20 years old. Some are recent launches. So those 20-year-old satellites were built for a different era when we didn't face these kind of threats. And so we want to continue to see that capability modernized.
And how new are some of the Chinese offensive systems designed to disrupt or destroy that infrastructure?
There have been launches just within the last couple of months that are, capable of impacting our space capabilities. So some of those Chinese threats are as up to date as they could possibly be, Senator.
Right. So that's like if you went down to the Apple store and you walked in with a flip phone, or perhaps even one of those old briefcase phones that we grew up with, and traded that in for a iPhone 17. We're dealing with, in some cases, that gap of technological capability.
I think you're right, Senator. In some cases, China has skipped a generation or two of legacy technology and gone right to using today's capabilities, and they are demonstrating they're developing some very capable systems.
And do you think, this is probably for both of you, but obviously, General, this is your domain primarily, but it would very quickly become the Admiral's domain as well. The opening shots of a potential conflict, which we hope never happens, but should it happen with our peer adversary? I don't use the word near peer because I don't think they are near. I believe they are a peer. You think the first shots would start in space?
Senator, I do think it's likely that in a conflict, the first shots would occur in cyber and in space. As you noted, that is not inevitable, that there will be a conflict, but we do expect that China would make an attempt to neutralize our space capabilities early in a conflict.
Admiral, do you care to comment on that?
Senator, I agree with that assessment, and I would just say we would expect a global, all-domain, effort on the part of a peer adversary.
Exactly. I mean, the next Pearl Harbor won't be around a small island with a few ships. It'll be a global space infrastructure attack. I hope it doesn't happen, but if I were them, that's how I'd open it up. So, because as you stated, General, our entire force structure, from technology to force formations, is really predicated on uninterrupted access to our space infrastructure and architecture with a low to no latency, high bandwidth connection. And most of those connections are very vulnerable, both from a software, hardware, and just an EW perspective. So I think what I would ask from both of you, being the primary uniform voices around this paradigm, is be very vocal that modernization is not going from a VHS tape to a DVD. It's making sure we're the most up-to-date, latest 21st century streaming capability. And unfortunately, oftentimes modernization, by the time it goes through the program of record, the committees, the evaluations, the discussions, the bureaucracy, it's not modern anymore. It's just It's just less old than the original model was. So this is a time where I think you have bipartisan commitment to force modernization, especially in this realm. And I'd ask you to be as vocal as possible and aggressive as possible to make sure we're not going from a VHS tape to a DVD. We are coming to the absolute most front edge of capability, so we're ready for that first strike. Thank you.
Senator Sheehy's line of questioning reflects a broader in Washington. The United States relies heavily on space-based assets for everything from GPS navigation and missile warning systems to intelligence gathering and global communications. If those systems are compromised, the ripple effects would be immediate and far-reaching, not just for military operations, but for civilian infrastructure and the global economy. What makes this challenge particularly complex is the asymmetry. It's often far easier and cheaper to disrupt satellites than to build and launch them. That dynamic creates a strategic vulnerability the U.S. is now racing to address. General Whiting emphasized the need for resilience, developing more distributed satellite networks, improving defensive measures, and ensuring rapid reconstitution capabilities if assets are taken offline. At the same time, this exchange underscores a deeper geopolitical reality: space is no longer a neutral domain. It's contested, competitive, and increasingly congested. China's actions, as described in the hearing, are part of a broader strategy to challenge U.S. dominance not just on Earth, but in orbit. The takeaway from this hearing is clear. Maintaining space superiority is no longer optional, it's essential to national security. And as Senator Sheehy's questions highlighted, the urgency is growing. The United States is now in a race not just to innovate, but to protect the very systems that underpin modern military and civilian life. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.